What's up guys, it's Reynad back, and today I want to be answering the most common questions that I've been reading about the Bazaar. I'm going to be diving pretty deep into the details on a couple of these questions, so it's going to be a little bit long. So if there's something specific that you guys want the answer to, check out the timestamps in the description below. Some of my favorite card designs so far are definitely the ones that tell a story. And a lot of the cards do that in a different way. So some of them are really simple, right? For example, there's a genie, and he's a neutral monster. He has 3 health. And you kill the genie, and he gives you 3 wishes. And a wish is a card that gets added to your deck. And it helps you buy stuff. And it's like a really simple card, but it's really intuitive what it does, and it tells a story, you know? There's like a giant sandworm where after you kill it, it burrows into your opponent's deck, and then when they draw it, it eats them. So a card like that I think is really fun. There's a Cyclops card that's a multi-stage card that really tells a story that I think is really cool because it's the type of card you can't really do in a paper game, like a paper deck builder, a tabletop one. So the Cyclops, it just has 1 health. It starts off as Sleeping Cyclops. And you know, you poke it, you do 1 damage to it, and then it's like Bothered Cyclops, you know? It's like starting to wake up, and it has 1 health again. So you poke it again, and then you woke the Cyclops up, and all of a sudden it's this huge monster with a ton of health. And if you kill the huge monster, you get his club, which is one of the most broken weapons in the game. So it's kind of like a procedural card that tells a story. I mean, there's an iceberg card that uncovers a lost ship as you whittle away with it. There's a weapon that's an enchanted match in the wizard class. And it starts off just doing 1 damage, but every time you play it, the damage it does doubles. And it starts off as a match, and then it turns into a bonfire. You know, it turns into a forest fire and inferno. It just gets out of control really quickly, and then it burns out after the last stage and just disappears from your deck. So I think right now, yeah, my favorite cards are the ones that definitely tell a story. And I gotta give a shout out to King Slime and Queen Slime, of course. I know YouTube comments are a fan of Queen Slime because she's thick. Yeah, you basically kill the slime, and then it splits up, and you get 4 baby slimes that attack you on your side of the board, and each of those drops a reward. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm all about right now, is the cards that tell a story. The 5 classes that we're going to start with are going to be very different. They're going to play in very unique ways, in ways that only really make sense when you do a deck building game in a digital format. So one of the biggest things that differentiates the way heroes play is their hero trait. So this is kind of similar to like a hero power in Hearthstone, if you think about that. It's an ability that every class can use at all times, but it's an ability that's unique to that class. The wizard class right now specifically, it's a very spell-heavy class. Spells in the game, you spend money on them and they give you an effect right away. So they're good late game, right? You don't have to wait to add a card to your deck, and then shuffle, then draw the card that you bought. Spells just give you the effect right away. So Wizard has a ton of those, but it's less focused on the recursive, powerful items and weapons. So it's a very tempo-oriented class, very aggressive, very fun class to play for sure. And it's got a fun little potion sub-archetype and a lot of ways to generate those. Vampire is a class that's pretty flexible. It has a lot of different ways of playing it. So Vampire can spend its life as a resource in order to buy a lot of cards that are more cost-effective than they are in other classes. Maybe they cost less money, but you have to pay a ton of life to buy them. So Vampire has a ton of cards like that. So if you buy a lot of those and you get all those efficient weapons and you kill the monsters that are, you know, really efficient to kill, you get a really powerful deck very fast. But you're going to lose a lot of life if you go that route. So that's going to be really bad against an aggressive strategy if that's what your opponent's going for that game. At the same time, Vampire can play a slower strategy by putting a bunch of leeches in the opponent's deck and kind of grinding them out, and placing a lot of servants to get in the way of what your opponent can buy, and then having the servants, you know, attack every turn and hurt the opponent. So Vampire is a class that can kind of play a disruption strategy, a slow strategy, or an aggressive one. The Chef is going to be one of the most fun classes in the game, for sure. So the Chef is a class that, I guess you could call it like a builder type of class. There's going to be 2 of these in the game, but they play very differently. So what you do with the Chef is you buy a lot of ingredients, right? That's step 1 for any chef. You Maybe you kill a chicken monster and you get some eggs, or you kill a cow monster and you get some milk. And after you get a bunch of ingredients into your deck, you start drawing through your deck, and as you draw and play those ingredients, you make dishes. And these dishes are going to be very powerful cards and powerful effects that give you this, this temporary huge burst of power once you assemble the right ingredients for your dish. It's a very fun class to play with. It's one of those classes we definitely couldn't have done outside of a digital environment, but I think it'll be one of the more meme-friendly classes, so I'm excited to see how that one plays out. Merchant has been my favorite class to play with so far. So every class starts with a bunch of weak cards in their starting deck, and usually these are just like one value coins. They can't really buy that much. So most classes use these coins to buy bigger weapons, buy some items that have these good recursive effects. But the merchant just uses his money to buy more money. So you're just buying bigger and bigger value coins, you're buying gold bars, and all of a sudden, these other classes, they're having like 5 or 6 money every turn to work with, but you're playing with like 10 or 12. So you can buy a ton of stuff. You can use this money to buy mercenaries that fight for you and kill your opponent. The merchant has an alternate win condition where if you buy enough stuff and you fill up your deck and it becomes big enough, you automatically win the game. So you can do that by buying a bunch of gems, which are just cards that do nothing but cycle and make your deck bigger, basically. Or you can do it by just buying whatever random crappy card on the board that you can afford. You can do it by buying really big, powerful cards that add more cards to your deck. But it's a very flexible class. It's definitely the least aggressive, and it feels like playing a combo control deck. The 5th class in the game is going to be the Engineer. So this is a class that's all about gathering these parts of a giant contraption, and once you get all the right parts together and you play all of them, then you build your huge contraption, and your contraption kills your opponent. It's going to be a class that is all about combining cards in the right way at the right time, and it's going to reward things like picking up more card draw, more than the other classes, so that you can assemble the right pieces faster. It's very much like a combo-oriented class, and it's going to be a ton of fun to play with. So there will be a Noodle card, actually. It's in the Chef class, and it is absolutely broken. So that's not a question, but it's definitely something I want to address. For the demo, when we decided to make the announcement video for the game, we wanted to put together something in the demo that gave us something to show to you guys. And it turns out that, pretty much in the early stages of game development, no matter how you take a 2-player game that's a card game with stuff on the board, it's gonna kind of end up looking like Hearthstone in one way or another. I will say that the game is something we're constantly developing. Even today, the board looks nothing like what it looked like back in that announcement video, and it's something we're gonna continue developing and changing and updating over time, because honestly, the way that the game works fundamentally is, it's not a game where you have mana, it's not a game where you control creatures or anything like that. Because of that, the user interface is going to need to evolve and take on a life of its own, and it's definitely starting to do that more and more. Yeah, so I actually saw a lot of the comments in YouTube mention Slay the Spire, and Slay the Spire is an awesome game. I love playing it, and for a lot of people, it's the first time they were introduced to a deck building game, because it's one of the first times that games from the the tabletop deck building genre had a digital port. So Slay the Spire is a super fun game, and it is like the Bazaar is in the same genre as Slay the Spire. So Slay the Spire is all about having this awesome single-player dungeon crawler experience. And it's also a game where you build your deck in between the fights. The game also uses mana. So those things are all very, very different from the way the Bazaar plays. First of all, we're multiplayer, we're not a single player game. Second of all, the Bazaar is a game where you don't use mana at all. You draw cards, and those cards generate resources. And most importantly, you're building your deck as the game goes on. So every single game, that is the gameplay, is building your deck as you go along. You're not like having a fight and then building your deck and then having another fight. So it's a multiplayer game. Both of you sit down, you start buying stuff, killing stuff. Both of your decks are growing as you play based on the decisions that you make. And fundamentally, it's a very different experience than Slay the Spire, but they are both deck building games, and I highly recommend that, for some of you guys that are tabletop fans of deck builders, you should definitely give Slay the Spire a try. So this is a great question from a lot of you guys that supported the campaign. You're getting a ton of this in-game currency as a result of backing early on, right? You're getting 3 times the value of whatever you're putting in. So I want to make it really clear and explain what that in-game currency is going to be used for. Because like I explained in the video, you're not going to be buying cards or anything like that. You're not building a collection of cards, you're building a collection of heroes. So the game starts with 5 heroes, right? In the game total. You're not going to have all of them unlocked. What do you use your in-game currency on? You're going to use it to unlock more heroes. A lot like a game like League of Legends, for example, right? As new heroes get introduced, you can use that in-game currency to buy even more of them. On top of that, the game is going to have a pack system. Like, you're going to be able to open packs. Maybe there'll be chests. I don't know what they'll be yet, but packs essentially that you open. And those are going to have different cosmetic items for you. So those are going to have alternate hero skins, gold versions of all the cards in the game. You're going to have different cosmetics that you can put on the board. So if you think about the little things in the corners of the Hearthstone game board that you can play with, imagine being able to own those and pick which ones are going to be on your board every game. And all of them are going to have custom effects and do unique things. If possible, if it works with the networking, I want to make it so that you can throw stuff at your opponent and they can see you flicking it at them. Just fun things like that. You can make a little beach cosmetic, and you can draw in the sand. Little things like that you're going to be able to invest in, and your opponent's going to be able to see those things. So yeah, alternate hero skins, alternate card versions and golden cards, and different board cosmetics. And if possible, I'd like to also be able to just reskin your half of the board. If you want it to be a jungle, if you want it to be a desert, an island, all of those things ideally will be possible. Again, it's really early right now. I don't want to make promises on all these things, but 100% every single one of them are goals right now. And we're going to put as many cosmetics into the game as possible, because at the end of the day, that's how we're getting paid, right? Is making sure that those cosmetics are as awesome as they can be, and that you guys are incentivized to spend money on them. So one of the biggest things I wanted to change from traditional deck builders is the way that the store works, the deck of cards that you're buying from. So in a traditional tabletop deck building game, you have a physical deck of cards, and you shuffle this deck of cards up, and that's where the cards that you're acquiring are coming from. The fact that we're digital means that we don't need to have a pre-built deck of cards. And I thought about, do we want to go that traditional route? Do we still want to use a pre-built deck, or do we want to go even further and do something really unique that we can only do on digital? And what I settled on is wanting to do a loot table. So every single card that shows up for you that you have the option of buying, or that's a monster that you have the option of killing, those cards are all going to have different drop rates. They're going to have different rarities. We can balance the game between patches by skewing rarities of cards showing up rather than changing the numbers on the cards. And this also allows us to introduce a lot of cool mechanics that we couldn't otherwise introduce. So for example, let's say that rather than having legendary cards be unique effects, we have legendary cards be objectively more powerful, for example. We could have essentially a pity timer, kind of like with pack opening in Hearthstone, or kind of like the critical hits in League of Legends, where, after 10 new cards showing up, you're guaranteed to see a legendary, right? We can have a mechanic in the game that literally does not affect your resources, doesn't do damage. All it'll say is legendaries are 25% more likely to show up for you this game. A mechanic like that is something that's really cool that you can only do with a format like this. And I kind of want to describe the advantage of this kind of system when it comes to a class like the engineer or the archaeologist, which is a class that probably won't be in the game on release, but it's something I'm definitely looking into. So for the engineer class, for example, let's say I want to put like 20 different contraptions in the game that the engineer can build. And all these contraptions require like 3 specific parts to build. So if you just have a pre-built deck with 60 random spare parts, if you buy like 2 of the spare parts but you never see the 3rd one because there's all this other crap for you, it feels really bad for the player, right? You invested all this into getting the 2 parts for your contraption, but you never got the payoff because you never saw the 3rd spare part. And you feel blue-balled. That's a bad feeling. So the way I want to change that is you can have the game work in a way where as soon as 1 spare part is picked up for the contraption, you can spawn the other 2 within the next X cards. So I can essentially guarantee that a player investing in part of a robot that he's trying to build, I can guarantee that as soon as he buys the arm of the robot, he'll see the legs and the head of it. All the parts necessary will show up. It'll be random when they show up, but they will show up. For the archaeologist class, for example, let's say I buy a spell that's like a footprint of a triceratops. And as soon as I buy the footprint, the skeletal remains of the triceratops is going to be spawned like 5 cards under the footprint. So you can essentially generate cards mid-game and add them to the store of cards that's being acquired from. And it lets you have a lot of flexibility as a designer when it comes to balancing, when it comes to mechanics in the game, and when it comes to basically increasing the design space so that every class has its own unique identity. You know, I want the engineer and I want the archaeologist to feel different than the other classes, and I want to do that in more ways than just, oh, one of these is going to have more spells and one's going to have more weapons. And you know, I want these cards to tell a story when we play the game. So we've actually had a lot of pretty awesome moments happen. I remember I was playing with my buddy Jeff at my place, and I was dominating him in this game. We were just playing a little paper prototype that I made with like, you know, Sharpie and playing cards and doodles. And I was just crushing him in this game, right? My deck was better, I had way better weapons, I had more life, I was making more money every turn. I was just crushing him. And all of a sudden, he takes his turn and he like plays an item that draws him a card, and then he casts a spell that draws him 2 more cards, and he kills a monster that gives him some effect right away, makes him some more money. And all of a sudden, he managed to have the perfect like 6 cards show up in a row that let him generate a ton of money, draw his entire deck, and do like 20-something damage to me, and just kill me out of nowhere. And yeah, I didn't even know that was possible when I made the game. Like, it wasn't like an intended thing. It just kind of organically happened, like, you know, one time in the first like 20 times we played it, which was crazy to see. And to be honest, I'm still pretty salty about it. He needed exactly those cards to win that game. So a lot of people have been asking about the timeline for development. To be honest, guys, we are so early in the process that you know, I cannot give you like a firm release date that we're aiming for. It would be irresponsible to do that because it's just so likely that delays happen in game development. What we're aiming for is a beta release in Q1 of next year, and the full release on the market in Q2 of next year. So we're aiming for PC and Mac, you know, at launch, with mobile happening as soon as possible as well. Now, I don't know if mobile's going to be first, or if PC and Mac are going to be first, or if it'll all be simultaneously. It's all too early to tell right now, but every single one of those platforms is extremely high priority for us, and we're going to be releasing the game on all of them as soon as we possibly can. I wanted to thank you guys again for the insane amount of support that you've had so far on this project. It's been, honestly, of any project that I've ever been involved with since I started in the gaming industry, I've never seen so much support and positive words of encouragement before, and it really means a lot to us. I want to make sure I get you guys some updates very soon with some gameplay footage, because our demo, even though, you know, it's not the prettiest thing in the world and it's rough, it is playing very well, and I want to, you know, get you guys some of that gameplay. So you have something with a little bit more substance to look at. In the meantime, keep sending the questions, keep sending the words of support. Thanks so much to everyone who's been supporting the project. And for those of you guys that are hitting me up saying, hey Reynad, I really believe in this project. I'm sorry, I just don't, I don't have money to contribute right now, but good luck with it. Don't worry about it. Just if you guys can help out by just telling your friends about it, sharing it on social media, just helping spread the word. It all goes a really long way, seriously. So thanks for the support. Keep the questions coming, and talk to you guys soon.